everyone. Welcome to the JFree906 podcast and the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch series. We are glad you are joining us here tonight. And I tell you what, we got a full house here tonight. Joining us tonight, and you're on mute still there, Cheryl. We have the author and medium, Cheryl Carter. Jimm Kjelgaard, who also has a podcast, which is called Soul of the Unexplained on YouTube. And of course, Mr. Pete Kelsey joining us tonight. All right. I tell you what, I couldn't ask for a better group of people to come on the show. And as always, Pete, I always reach out to him a little bit late and say, hey, would you mind coming on the show? And every time you're like, yeah, I could do that.
Hey, it's fun. What can I say?
I tell you what, it's an honor to have you on. Really, it is. And you have, like we were talking about in the pre-show, you have all the cool toys. I mean, and you know how to use them and read the data. So that's a big benefit to it all too. Folks, we have the the thing that we do here is it does take a little bit of an investment on my part. And so I just like to say, if you don't mind, if you want to help support the show, you can do it a couple of different ways. There is the Patreon channel. It's patreon.com, and it's JFree906 out there. We have several patrons out there now, and I appreciate each and every one of you so very, very much. Thank you. And you can also get one of these little tumblers that are right here behind me, right here. You can get one of these tumblers that has the logo on it. And actually this one was made especially for me, and it glows in the dark. And I don't know if you can see that, but it's got an alien. It's got a spaceship beaming up Bigfoot. And then it's got the logo, and at the bottom, it's got an alien on the bottom. If you can kind of see that there. Yeah. Isn't that cool? And it glows in the dark. These are actually purchased, but they are engraved by blue6laser.com. And Linda will probably put that up like she always does in the chat. And that is Jess Grollo. She does those for us. And you can get one. There's a link down below. You can click on that link and it'll take you right there. And you can just order one of those mugs. I think they're $25 for the traveler, the tumblers. And it really helps support the show. And I thank each and every one of you so very much. I am Joy. Wow. Thank you right off the bat. That is so awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you. And don't forget to click and subscribe. All right. There it is. There, right there. Jess Grollo will hook you up. And she does a lot of different engravings. So yeah, she's a great gal. We met her. She's actually been on Beyond Oak Island a couple of times with her husband, Mike, out at they are investigating Poverty Island off of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan out in the lake there for Marty Lagina and Rick Lagina. So yeah, great couple, Mike and Jess. Love them to death. Tonight, we are here to be talking about The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, episode number 8, Between the Lines. Beth, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Thank you. Really helps. Between the Lines. And so really, when you start off, you kind of take a look at that description of that show, the title of the show, and you're kind of like, okay, who came up with this one? But we know that who started all this is Mr. Pete Kelsey, but he's the one who discovered these lines. So we're going to be digging into that. And I also wanted to say too that we are all part of the insiders group at Skinwalker Ranch. Love being an insider. It is it is absolutely the best membership that I have ever been part of, that I have paid for. The benefits just blow me away. Vesta, oh my gosh, you guys, thank you. Really appreciate that. Wow, thank you. But yeah, the insiders group is fantastic, and there is a link down in the description below. If you click on that link, it'll take you right out there. It is a paid membership. I think you get a 10-day free trial. You can check it out. And then if you like it, which, if you like anything to do with Skinwalker Ranch, you're going to like being an insider, because the access to the crew, the cast members, Pete is on there all the time talking with us, in the Q&As and the ranch revelations. Great stuff. We just love it. And we get to find stuff too and help with the experiments. It's really awesome. So,
yep.
All right. So let's dig into this. And Cheryl, you've written some books on Skinwalker Ranch and stuff. So you've got a little bit of insight. I know you can add to this as we go along. and really appreciate your bringing your research to the table here with us tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, really do appreciate it. And so we're going to start off. The show kind of started off talking about a little bit about Jay Stratton and when he was on the show last week and some of the things that took place while he was there. Like when they did the drive around the ranch in the Jeep and was following, they had the GPR or the GPS data. I don't know what all they had. They were looking for radiation and all different types. Pete, you might even know some of that a little bit better than I do, of what they had with him. But they did a lot of that trek around, and they collected data. Were you familiar with all the different types of data they were collecting at the time?
Not all of them, but the usual suspects: tri-field meter, gamma, basically all the things that have a history of lighting up that are portable.
Yep. Susan, thank you. Okay, so yeah, and what was really cool about that, and one of the things that we found out being an insider, was that they did the exact same experiment, that they did with Jay in the vehicle, and they wanted to see how the ranch reacted to his being there. So they ran it with him, and they ran it when he was completely out of Utah. They ran it again, and they timed it. And this was the key part that we learned being an insider, that they timed it exactly every step of the way, the same number of people in the vehicle, everything, because they wanted the data to be exactly, or the experiment to be exactly the same, time-wise, number of people, the same trek. Each stop they made, they stayed in that spot the same amount of time, everything, because they didn't want to taint that data. And you saw what happened. They've got some data that shows the GPS data showing it was going 1,100 feet under the ranch. And what was significant about that spot where it took off and went down? You guys remember? It was right at the drill site.
The drill site, yeah.
Yeah. It started at the drill site, and then when he got out of the vehicle, where he said he had his experience with that shadow across the road and they couldn't cross that line, that's where it went and dove. And that little J on that data, how does that happen? I don't know.
Jeff, you and I have talked about this before. If there's a consistent tech that goes wonky, it's GPS.
Yeah.
And I talk about it a lot. It's the thing. Granted, we all have our bias, but that's the thing that that's the thing I am literally keeping score of, because it just keeps happening and happening and happening.
Yeah. And why? I mean, it's, so and you take it, and like when they did it without Jay in the vehicle, it was perfect. It went around. It was didn't go underground, didn't have any weird things happening. But yet it, when Jay was in the vehicle, it just went wonky. So
also, I can't help it, because your point is really well taken about the duplicity of the experiment and adhering to time and location, and it's called science, everyone. And that is so important with this, because if something happens, you need to be able to back it up with the data to say this actually happened. We
gotta follow the data.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that GPS isn't just have trouble on the ground; it's also up in the air when they're in the helicopters. Remember?
Right.
Yeah. Showing the helicopter being 63 miles underground or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or even your and I think this was it the photogrammetry? I forget which one of your experiments that you had done, where it took that part of that data across the Mesa there, and it shot it way. I mean, it was farther than your equipment could even detect. That's right? Do you want to talk about that for a second? Or?
Yeah, it was beyond the range of the laser scanner. So that another great example. How can you extend the range of a laser-based device 3 or 4x? You can't.
No.
At least not with, current understanding of physics and
Right.
et cetera. So it's just another one of those things. It's pretty crazy. But as I've said before, my the thing that I think about a lot is GPS only works because of time. So that's something I pay attention to consistently and probably talk about too much. But whenever I see something weird with GPS, I go right to time is what makes that work. So if time is behaving differently on a property, which I can't even get my head around,
Yeah.
that would be, that would change history. That would change our understanding of everything.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that the time, and we do base so much on time, but also that, and I think that the GPS data. So when you think about that, I mean, did time slip there? Did it for some reason without us even realizing it? Did something take place? Did they key something and kick in that hornet's nest that might have made time slip a little bit? I mean, you talk about this, and that's why if you notice in the intro of the show, I put the time machine little pop up of the time machine movie in there. That's one of my all-time favorite movies.
Mhm.
I
Classic.
absolutely love that. I like both of them, the old version and the
I was
new.
gonna say, have you seen the one?
With Guy
guess it was-
Pearce?
I'm thinking of the one with oh gosh, came out like 1979, 1980 with Mary Steenburgen and one of the McDowell guys called Time After Time, but it's basically
Oh,
the
yeah.
same kind of.
Yes.
And in fact, the guy, the McDowell actor, actually is playing H.G. Wells in that movie. But the original from back in the '60s with Rod Taylor and Yvette
Oh,
Mimieux,
That's the
timeless,
best. Yeah.
timeless.
Yep, and I love it because now if you think about this, if somebody went back in time and they changed something significant, let's say it was something significant at that moment, would we even know? Would we realize that time had just changed? Probably not. So if you take that concept and you move it into what's happening with the GPS data and the time maybe slipping or has something happening there, would we even realize that it happened? But we look at the data and go, well, that's weird. How
So
did that?
you keep using that phrase. Time keeps on slipping,
I know. I was,
into the
my mind was going
future.
there too.
Sorry, I just evoking some Steve Miller Band. Never a bad thing. Sorry.
No, never
Never
a
a
bad
bad
thing.
thing.
But what if
Absolutely.
time is slipping into the future?
It could
There you
be.
go.
It could be. And I talked about that, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I mentioned this last night when we were talking about the Beyond Skinwalker Ranch episode, where they talk about the battery drain on equipment. Is it possible that the battery didn't really drain abnormally? It's just that
Ooh.
time changed
Time.
Ooh.
into the future, and now the battery's
Ooh.
dead, and we didn't realize the time. I don't know. I'm just
I
saying.
just have Rendlesham Forest on my mind. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, there's another one too. Yeah, you and I had a discussion about that recently. Or you did. You were telling me more about it too. So anyway, that's
It's gonna be in my new book. Yeah.
awesome. Oh boy. Do you have a name for it yet?
Chosen.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Oh, I can't wait. It's gonna be a good one. So yeah. So anyway, that's a rabbit hole, man. We could talk about for hours, quite honestly. But when you get this GPS data from like Jay going around and then them looking at it later, and you see these anomalies, how does it slip like that and go underground? Is it like you said, if it was a time thing and then the Earth's rotation
Mhm.
and movement of all that while that time was slipped, and then all of a sudden now it's jumped ahead, you skipped ahead a little bit, like hitting the fast forward, and all of a sudden, I don't know.
Isn't there an actual test that can be done with some kind of laser surveying equipment that can actually tell if there's like a time? I mean, obviously, we're talking minuscule, like time shifts between locations. Isn't I think I remember reading about that and maybe saw it on a documentary somewhere that they can actually do some kind of technology thing like that where they can shoot a laser at one part, kind of like you do when you're surveying land,
Mhm.
and it can tell you whether or not everything is arriving on time as expected, and if there's like any variation in what the expected distance and time that light, I would assume, travels that distance
Mhm.
that you're surveying. So, um, have any of you ever heard of anything like that?
I've
Any
heard of it. Don't know much about it. How about you
Yeah,
guys?
there's from the Apollo missions, there's a reflector on the moon that NASA can shoot a laser at and study time because it's laser and speed of light. Um, the greater the distance, the more chance of being able to notice something off
Mhm.
becomes possible.
Mhm.
Right.
So yeah, it's a great idea, Jim. There've been discussions about that on the property about, because I've spent my first half of my career in civil engineering and land surveying, and
Wow.
it's like if we could set control up here,
Mhm.
monuments in the ground, in concrete,
Right.
so they don't move at all, and
Mhm.
then come back and survey them on a regular basis.
Mhm.
If they're showing movement, that would be really interesting.
Yeah.
So
I,
anyway,
I agree.
this is
Yeah.
my white. That's my white whale. I don't want to
Awesome.
I like that.
hijack the
I like that.
conversation.
Well, I think it's a white whale worth chasing.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Robot mentioned something about the butterfly effect movie. And that's, again, there you
Yeah,
go.
Yeah.
That whole
Yeah.
thing, going back and changing time. Nobody knew it, but the person that was doing it, but you never know what those consequences are going to be. So that's a scary thing about it, right? So
Right.
look right there. This was Tracy's asking a question of Pete. Since you are the king of data, riddle me this. Have you ever thought of taking your data with the Winky GPS trails and correct the GPS trails to view what the rest of your data becomes? Well, I don't even know how a person would even begin to do that.
and honestly, neither do I. I mean, I don't want it to sound like I'm dodging the question, but I'm not sure how. Let me think about that, and if
Yeah.
light goes on, I'll come back to it. But at the
Yeah.
moment, that's like I want to get Eric on a bat phone and say, "Help."
Exactly. That's the go-to Professor Bard. Yes, for sure. Yeah. Taking your data with the Winky GPS trails and correct the GPS trails to view what the rest of your data. I have no idea what that. Yeah. And Alita just mentioned too, could deja vu be a time slip? I don't know.
Mm.
That's a whole nother. We need Shannon on the show for that one. Shannon DeSalvo. She studies that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Well,
Um,
I can't
go
help it.
ahead.
I'm sorry, Jeff.
Go ahead.
So there are a million theories out there going back to Einstein, et cetera, that the only way to travel great distances is speed of light, relativity, right?
Mhm.
So if time is behaving strangely anywhere, does that mean, doors are opening and closing?
I would say yes, just from my completely uneducated opinion.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have no idea, but that's the type of, earworm that, gets in my head and just won't let me alone.
Let's see. Adjust so that the wrong is right, and see what the changes to the right due to the right data. We need Eric. That
I'll
would
send
be a
up a
really
flare.
yeah. Send up a flare. The bat signal. That's what they call it. The Bard signal. They call that in the in the chat. Send the Bard signal out so they can get him on the line. Oh wow. This could be a whole nother show. I'm gonna have to think about that. All right. Tell you what, let's jump to the drill site. Um, before we get to all the work that Pete did on the show, I want to jump over to the actual drill site real quick. The guys, and I'm going to bring up a picture. Whoops. Let's get this over here where it's supposed to be.
Good question, Raj. I've wondered that myself because, and I've never been able to research, but we know that or at least the rumor is anyway, back in the 70s or 80s, NASA was doing some research out in that Uinta Basin area, and they actually had a place called Gravity Base Vernal or something like that. And so it would be interesting to see if there's any kind of gravitational anomalies that occur in or around the ranch. I don't how they would do that. I have no idea. Just couldn't tell you. But that's an excellent question, Roger.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I said, we might have to come back to this because it's one of those subjects that I am just absolutely intrigued by when you start talking about time and time portals and shifts in time and yeah, really cool stuff. Let's get over here to I want to get through this part so we can get to Pete's important stuff. The guys went out to the drill site. Remember how they was it last season they tried to drill under the water, under the canal, under the road, and then into the mesa. They hit something like a dome type of a feature that would prevent them from being able to get to the place they wanted to. Then this year earlier, they came back with was it hot shot drilling? They came back and tried it again. And this time they went on the other side of the road, right up at the edge of the mesa itself. They tried again. They went up against that hard surface, 400 feet in, and they could not get any further. Didn't ruin the bit, didn't overheat anything, didn't even make any difference to their equipment at all. They were putting 8,000 pounds of pressure trying to push out against it for 30 minutes, and it didn't do anything. They didn't get any further, and it didn't damage a thing. And we all were left going, what in the heck did that? Well, now they were talking about last week's show. They were talking about how can we get up on top of the mesa with something. And there has been so many, and I hate to say this, but really bad ideas that people come up with on social medias to try to tell them how they need to get up there. If you guys would know, and this is something else we find out as an insider, they have thought of all of those things and they've thought about a way to do all of those things that are completely impractical. So the best thing and they have a budget they have to work within, guys. So they can't have, what is the big double prop Chinook helicopter come in and pick up something and bring it up. They can't afford that.
I did see a really good recommendation, just kind of a comic aside there. Somebody said that it would be really cool if Brandon installed a chairlift to go from the command center to the top of the mesa. And I'm like, okay. Sorry, just had to interject that.
Well, it might take a whole season to put that in, but yeah, if you could, yeah, okay.
The things you see on Twitter.
There goes the whole budget then. I mean,
the whole budget for the year is shot. They wouldn't be able to do any more experiments.
Hey, this is a cool little behind the scenes thing on the visual you have up, Jeff. That pile of rocks that doesn't belong anywhere.
Yeah.
That's what was moved.
Yeah. Yes. These right here are the rocks that were taken off of the mesa by the crane and set off to the side. And I forget how many 1,000 pounds or tons of rock they moved. It was enormous.
Yeah.
And you know how much that crane cost to bring out and spend the time that they did. That blew a huge hole in their budget to be able to do this. But they felt it was important enough to try and move some of this so they could get closer into the mesa to try the drill.
Also destroyed at least one culvert getting it there because the thing was so heavy.
Heavy, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I remember they put that down in the canal right there. Yeah, so you could get across. Yeah. Maybe a ski lift, somebody said. But I noticed that they were trying to make like a little Stonehenge here with this one. I thought that was really cool. They got two standing on their edge and then one across the top, like the Flintstones house or something. I thought that was really cool. They could have really erected something neat if they would have had, more money, more budget to move those rocks. But anyway, I digress on that. So they brought out Joe. And Joe came out. He is somebody that we've not seen on the show before, but he has been there and he helps with ranch security with Dragon and Caleb. And he's also a professional driller. So what better, guy? Let's go. Hey, doesn't Joe do that? Yeah. So they go get Joe. He comes out over on the scene, and we get to see him for the first time on the show, and hopefully we'll get to see more of him. So they get there and they discuss this a little bit, and there he is there doing his work, his security work. And there's the, and folks, I have to say too, and this was another thing that, you think about, you're thinking, run up that Mesa.
Yeah.
I have never stood there at the base of that Mesa and looked up that thing before. Pete has. I don't know, Cheryl. I don't know if you've ever been on the ranch or anything like
No,
that.
but just look, those vehicles look like ants.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how. Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
it's 200 feet from ground level to the top, and I have not climbed it yet because I won't. I've seen people get hurt. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm too old and too fat. I'll wait for the chairlift.
The chairlift. Exactly, right? So yeah, so here they go, and Joe is bringing along his equipment, and remember, this is that spot right here is that spot where they had done the GPR data, and they had found the anomaly up in or underneath the ground that was the height of the mesa, tall or deep, and about 20 feet, I think it was 20 feet wide, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the height of the mesa deep. Okay. So they wanted to be able to drill down into this. So there they go. Now we're talking about, like Pete just said, 200 feet up rocky terrain that you have to climb over. And these guys are carrying this equipment up there. And you heard Dragon. What did Dragon say when he was doing the little spot interview? He's like, after all the sweat and heat that we went through, we hope we get something good out of this. Yeah, out of this work that's being done. So there they are, having to carry this up there. Not just that, but they also carried up that watering trough, had to go up there, the pipes and hoses and all the pieces for the drill. Yeah, can't imagine. They brought out this water truck from the fire department, came out with a water truck so they could pump water up there and put it into that watering trough because the drill needs it to be able to keep it cool and use it as a lubricant. Yeah, they need a helicopter. Yeah, that's one bigger than Brandon's. So Nick comes out from the Uinta Fire District and brings out the water. And there's Joe up there working with the drill. Now, Joe had said initially that this unit here could do about, what do you say, about a foot an hour? I forget what. Yeah, they got to go down 40 feet, and he said about a foot an hour. It's slow, but it's got to be done, right? So, and you can imagine that he's not going to get that done in one day. 40 hours or more to do the work, and you're probably going to be drilling for 8 to 10 hours a day, maybe. So several days, right, to get this done. So, and we're not getting, the answers back right away on this for sure, but, is this the other option? This was the only other option that they could do at this time. What do you guys think about this? I mean, I can't think of any other thing they could have done to try to, get a drill in there and get this done, get this performed, but I'm glad they are.
I do have one question about that, and I guess I would ask Pete because he knows more about the technology outside of it than I do. But I know that there's allegedly a technology that I think the Department of Defense has that they used clear back in the days when they were hunting for bin Laden in Afghanistan. It's a satellite-based imaging that actually allows them from that satellite to look down, and they can actually see inside like mountains and things like that. They can see passageways and voids and stuff like that. Is that, and I know Travis mentioned one time that they were going to launch a rocket with something that had something like that on it. And I guess the rocket, there were some problems with the rocket. I guess it blew up or something like that. But is that kind of technology? I'm sure it's got to be in the public sector now, so, or at least some form of it. Are you aware of anything like that would be like a high altitude satellite imaging that would allow them to do a more high resolution type of imaging than what they have there?
I've heard of a LiDAR that can do that. It's out of Lawrence Livermore. Um, it's been a couple of years ago now, so nothing satellite based, but Lawrence Livermore had a LiDAR that they were developing, that they have developed, that could see in buildings, through concrete and, so all the same kind of tech that you're talking about.
Right.
It's undoubtedly laser based, just a really undoubtedly powerful laser. But that's about as far as I can go with that. What I loved about drilling from the top, it was, I'm a guest. I have no insight into the experiments unless they're ones that I'm involved in. But I'm sure there was a conversation at some point. It's like, guys, if you're going to drill laterally and you have that bearing and you have the distance that it went in, what's the line that goes straight up from there that you could drill down vertically from that location? Again, that's just good science. That's, using location-based data to figure out, to pinpoint exactly what this thing, what the anomaly in the Mesa is. That was that for me, as being in the audience. I was like,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to see. That's so
Yeah.
important. And of course, they leave us hanging.
Yeah.
They better come back to that vertical drill, because that's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. It
It
truly,
really is.
truly is. Yeah. If they can drill down in there. Now, here's what's going to happen. If they drill down in there and they hit something solid again and they can't go any further, now what? I got a feeling that's what's going to happen. I mean, it's happened on 2 other drill attempts.
Yeah. Well, unlimited budget, unlimited time. I'd be like, get Jan on the phone and let's get him back out here, if he'll even come. Right.
Yeah. Yep. Let's see. What was that? You had just had a comment brought up there. I was gonna. That was SMS Pirate. It's tempting to say, but would be wrong. Thomas is a great project manager. They said the other night that about how painful resource handling is, because they do not know if something will or will not work. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that's something. If they bring something out to the ranch and they give it a shot and it doesn't work, then it's does it still make the show? I don't know, but I mean, they don't know until they get they get these ideas. Let's try this experiment and see what happens. And if it doesn't pan out, well, I mean, okay, move on to the next experiment.
Well, and they might only get to try that one time. Maybe it would work the second time, but like you said, the budget.
Yeah,
exactly.
I was just going to say, you can only, the whole tax write-off excuse only works so many times before some bean counter somewhere says, that's enough of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Look at the money I invested into this project. Yeah, exactly. And it's something interesting you brought up, Jim, is that that was that satellite data. I've seen that was used also on Oak Island at one point. They had looked at the island looking for gold and silver deposits and things of that nature.
Yeah.
It didn't really pan out to anything. I don't know. And again, as a viewer, we say, well, they didn't give it enough of a try. They should have looked harder for that. Well, they may have, and it didn't make the show. So as an armchair quarterback, we just don't know. Same thing with Skinwalker Ranch. And Thomas himself had said, such a small percentage of what is actually filmed ever makes the show. So it's
roughly 1% or something like that. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
It's insane the amount of what ends up on that cutting room floor. I mean that. Yeah.
Yep. So and somebody had mentioned too, it's hard to control the direction of Jan said that the drill going straight forward without veering off target right or left. This kind of a drill, yes.
Especially something that's more like what Joe was using. That I can see where that would become a real potential problem for sure.
Muon technology, yes, they use that on Oak Island. Somebody brought that, Wendy brought that up, but you're going to wait 2 years for the results. So there you go. If you want to do that and wait till season 6, to find out what the results are. Yeah, I think what they're doing, and I commend the guys because I think they're doing exactly what they need to do. They've thought about this. They've gone through these trials. They've sat around and had meetings about it. I think they're going about it the right way,
Yeah.
um, the way that they can within the limits that they are confined with. So, um, I don't have any problem with what they're doing at all. I did want to mention too, and I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show, we do have a giveaway tonight. Many people have been donating things for us to give away on the show. And so tonight we actually have a Skinwalker Ranch coffee mug that we're giving away. I have one. I meant to go grab it before the show started, and I forgot. But I do have a picture of it. I'll show here real quick. But this is going to be a giveaway for later on. It's the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch coffee mug. So that will be given away tonight, and I'll explain when we get Linda up here to do the spin on that, how we go about it. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. So I forgot to mention that. I'm sorry, Linda. I didn't bring that up. So let's see. Let me get back to where we were. Oh, here we go. Now, and again, this kind of gives you, I grabbed this picture because it kind of gives you another perspective of just how high up on the mesa they are. And the wee little talking
Yeah.
truck toys down there at the bottom, how far away they are. Um, and having to lug that equipment. And I go back to the same thing that I've said before about this portion of the mesa. To me, looks like a collapse area. I mean, you look over here to the side and you see what looks like pretty solid stuff. You look over here to this side. Yeah, there's a few rocks, but it looks pretty solid. This area right here, not so much.
Absolutely.
And Christopher Bartell talked about that too, when he was on the show. So, on our podcast, he talked about that as well. So this has always been a high area of interest on the ranch. Pete, was this when you did the scan that had that you showed where it showed that one line on the mesa that was way off? Did this have any relation to it, this area here, or was that from a different spot?
It was almost on the same line. It was almost a straight line to this spot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's impressive.
Again, so many things point to this one spot right here. So yeah, and like I said, I'm glad the guys are doing everything they can to get inside here and get a look without destroying the mesa. They're not going to use dynamite, folks. They don't want to destroy it. So, all right. Later in the show, the guys go out to the south field and they go out to look for a little bit. They do go out to Caleb and I think it was Caleb and Bryant go out to do a little bit of investigative work where they saw the anomaly, the orb, if you want to call it an orb, that they saw last week, and they analyzed this a little bit, and they found another set of bones, and it was really fresh. Does this have anything to do with what's going on out there? We just don't know. But the important part of this is you can't just dismiss it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can. I mean, do you guys agree that you have to look into every little piece of this?
It's still data. It's still data. You gotta at least file it away, and so that then if something else does connect to it, you'll still have that. So it's it's how relevant, that's anybody's guess. We just don't know.
Exactly.
Right, because did something kill it, or did they eat something that killed them?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And if it doesn't seem relevant today, could it be relevant a couple of weeks or months or years from now? So
exactly.
I can remember having this similar dialogue with the insiders. It's like, when in doubt, just log it. Log it,
Yes.
log it, log it. You got to have the data.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly right. So, because again, you go out to social media and so many people have been going, why are they wasting their time on a dead carcass? You have to do it. You have to get that data.
Mm-hmm.
You have to. So they bring in the expert. They talk to Haley, Dr. Haley, and have her take a look at it. And you heard Brian say, "Oh, you're probably getting so tired of us sending you these pictures because you imagine there's been more than just what we've seen on the show." By that comment alone. But again, it's something that they have to do. So it's a very, very important part. Now, before we move on from this section, the guys were looking out at the tree line, and I know that Eric has way, way better equipment, video equipment, everything than what I have. But I took a very good look at that orb, UAP, whatever you want to call it, that shot through there. And it was in that one frame of that trail cam data or pictures that was taken. It was in one frame, and there it was, boom, and it was gone in the next frame. Now, when I looked at that, my impression, and I went through this very slowly last week, going back and forth and looking at it, it appears to me that it wasn't back at that tree line, but it was about halfway between the camera and that tree line in the middle of that field. That's what was my perspective when I was moving it back and forth and watching it appear and disappear. It didn't look like it was way back. Initially, I thought it was way back by the tree line or the bush line, whatever you want to call that. And then when they went out to look, they were back by the tree line. And I thought, I think it's in the middle of that field. But then again,
I do too. Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. But then again, I'm not there. I'm not going to ever say that anything that I have that I'm looking at is better than what, or my eyes with their age is any better than what Eric has. So, but that's where they were looking. But I have a feeling that it was something. And to me, it seemed like it was passing from right to left or left to right across that field very, very fast. And it's amazing that they even caught it with that trail cam.
Right.
So anyway, so they but that they're out there investigating. They're looking for it. And that's the important part of it. For sure. So next they Dragon tells the story of the rancher. Now we're gonna. He talked about and it kind of went back in time a little bit. And talked about the rancher who had the very, very large. The story is the very, very large wolf that attacked one of their calves. I think it was, and he had a hold of it. And the story I heard was a little bit different from what Dragon went through and described on the show. But the guy had apparently unloaded his pistol into this thing.
Right.
Not just any pistol, a 357 Magnum. I mean, that's, that bullet comes out with enough velocity to penetrate the engine block on a tractor trailer. So it's not a small handgun.
Right. Cheryl, did you have something you wanted to add for that too, or
I was going to say that was the Shermans.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And it wasn't until he went in, he had time to run and grab his high power rifle, shot it twice with that before it actually let go and ran off, and then no blood trail and disappeared. Was that basically the story as you remember it?
Pretty much.
And then you look at the bite marks. That was one of the points that was made by the veterinarian Haley about the bite mark in the scapula and how it had looked like the teeth had gone through the bone. So that animal is not going to be your common coyote or anything like that. More than likely, it's going to be, in her expert opinion, it's going to be something very strong, very large, with a strong enough bite to actually pierce the bone through, as well as the flesh and all of that. So,
and that's where we got that term bulletproof wolf. You hear them mention that a lot.
Yeah.
That came from the Shermans, yes.
Yeah.
And people who I saw a lot of people on the insider chat last night during the Ranch Revelations asking about what throwing out different theories for what the bite marks could be. And for those who don't know, the area where Skinwalker Ranch is, it is a very well-known habitat range for mountain lion, or cougar as we call them out here. There's also, I believe there is a lot of wild dogs, wild packs of dogs. Like I think throwing back to season 1, I think they determined that's what actually attacked the llama that one time, were some feral dogs that were out there. And you've got wolf, and I don't I don't think it's necessarily bear habitat out there, but certainly wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility because Utah does have plenty of bears that are out here.
Mhm.
So, and then you know, I suppose at least the way that I took it anyway. Maybe I'm wrong, but it sounded like there is even a possibility that something else, altogether. Maybe it was shot, something like that. I can't imagine why, and because I would imagine they probably would have been able to hear the report from a gun if something like that had
Right.
happened. But as far as wildlife goes, yeah, it's I would hate to think that there's a big cat that's out there because that would scary times.
Mhm.
Well, I've told this story a couple of times before, but it's what's always interested me about it is that Chris Bartell, he and I were talking in the trailer when we met there on the ranch, and because I had this experience, and there's a picture out there I posted it a couple of times of, I mean, seriously big, and they're canine, they're not cats.
Yeah.
These are canine tracks, and
Mhm.
I mean, they're that big,
Wow.
and I was out there by myself,
Oh,
and it was right at the triangle, it was right at where the road splits to turn south along the fence line, right at the triangle. And, the tracks weren't there. I flew for 20 minutes, I landed, and there were tracks between me and my truck. And I was like, okay, I'm done.
wow.
And anyway, so then I'm in the trailer. I don't know. It was probably a different trip. And I had met Chris and we're chatting. And he said, I have a well-documented story that I tell. I was out there with my dogs when I was doing security at the exact same spot 10 years before. The dogs alerted, something of size starts growling down in the canal culvert area thing.
Oh, yes, I remember this story. Yeah.
Remember that? And then
Yes.
he's got pictures of that, like Bugs Bunny arrow wolf bear
Mhm.
trap thing that he
Yeah.
found. So anyway, speaking for myself, there is a seriously large canine and a history of seriously large canines on that property. And it was just wild to hear from Chris. Wow, yeah, the same thing happened to me in the same spot 10 years ago or whatever it
Wow.
was. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Wow. And this happened while you were there working. You didn't see it or hear it, but yet
no,
the tracks
no,
weren't there when you started, but then they were there when you finished. So
yeah,
and
I
how
freaked out.
yeah.
I came back into the command center and I'm like, I'm not going back out there by myself.
No.
And Caleb being Caleb, he literally, jumps out of his chair and goes, I'm going out there. And he put a track on the tracks. He followed them until they stopped,
Wow.
to the south. And I'm like, wow, Caleb, I'm glad you're on my team.
Yeah. Well, you heard Dragon made a comment. He said when they were looking for that and they found the bones, and he said something to the, and I know I'm not quoting him properly here, but he said something to the effect of, I'm not worried about the bones we find like this. I'm worried about what may have killed it.
Right.
The other things that are out there that would have killed it. And that's goes right along with what you just said. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'd be packing. And even then, does that enough? Maybe not.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. And you didn't see it. That's the part that blows me away. You didn't see it or hear it. And
No.
broad daylight, I'm assuming.
Yeah, broad daylight, and it couldn't have been 20 minutes just based on the battery life of the drone I was flying. It was just, well, and it had rained. This was in March. It had rained a lot within a few days. So, the mud was epic, and that's why the tracks were so obvious and not something I could have missed when I got out of the truck when I first arrived and started setting things up. So, and if
Wow.
folks are curious, it's up on it's on the insiders. It's in the spreadsheet if you want to see the photo. I took a
Okay.
photo of these tracks next to my size 13 foot. It'll give you some sense of scale and proportion as to how big this
Mm.
doggy
Wow.
is
Wow.
or
Yeah, the
whatever it
spreadsheet
is.
that he's talking about is a spreadsheet that is out there for anything that is captured for the insiders, and it's it's extensive now. It started off as a wee little thing, and now it's become a monster of its own. The spreadsheet, but it's one of the things that whenever we see something or report something, it gets added to the spreadsheet. So there's a lot of anomalies there and a lot of UAP sightings and things like that that we get to do as insiders that we've spotted and seen. So yeah, so a lot of interesting things there. Okay, we're getting ready to jump over to Pete's portion of the show, and before we do that, we're going to do the giveaway, and again, it's that coffee mug. And Linda's going to come up. Simpson is going to come up, and she's going to. There she is. Yeah. So no, not Linda Simons. That's a different Linda.
Different Linda.
Up in Oak Island area. Yeah. So we're going to do the spin now. To be eligible to get any of these, you need to. There's a couple criteria. One, you need to be part of our Facebook group, which is the Curse of Oak Island and Beyond Skinwalker Ranch Facebook group. And Linda will put up the picture of what the giveaway is going to be. And then you just simply comment on that post saying yes. That's all you got to do. Say yes, and you're automatically entered. And then Linda will do her thing that she's going to do here and spin. And we're going to get to find out. And while she's spinning, I got to jump over here and grab a water because I'm talking way too much. And you guys are not talking enough. And I need a drink. So
I've got my smart water because Pete's going to be giving his presentation. I need all the smarts I can
oh
get.
man, I need some of that right there. Oh my gosh, I need some of that. All right, so this is the spin for it, and I'm gonna solo picture Linda here so she can get up there and go at it.
Great. Just great. Okay,
All right.
here we go.
All right, what do we got for a name here? Let's see. Janet. Janet Scarza.
There you go.
All right, Janet gets the coffee mug. So Janet, you know the drill. You get a hold of, you have to be here, you have to be present to win. That's one of the other criteria that I hadn't mentioned already. And let me get back to the other picture here. There we go. And so let us know if you are here, Janet. You generally are. She's one of the regulars.
Janet's here, and I'm pretty sure I have her address.
Okay. All right.
This is not her first rodeo.
Yeah, apparently. So let us know that you're here. There she is. Yep, I'm here. All right. There she is. All right. You know the drill.
All right.
Linda will get that sent over to you. All right.
I'll get it out on
Jan.
Monday. Thanks,
Thank you, Linda.
everybody.
Yep.
Thank you, Linda.
Who donated that, by the way?
Me, I bought it. I paid for it.
Oh, well, there you go.
About 25% of our giveaways are donated.
Yes.
The
Okay.
rest of them, Jan Anderson and I pay for.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, thank you.
Yeah. There you
Awesome.
go.
Mighty,
There you go.
mighty nice, Linda.
Yes,
Thanks,
mighty nice.
guys.
You're a
All
legend, Linda.
Indeed. All right. Now, I tell you what. Now, as we jump over to Mr. Kelsey here, and you and my son have a condition, a skin condition that he has to wrap up. And my granddaughter, poor thing, she's 3.5 years old, and she has it as well. Very sensitive to the sun. So whenever she goes outside or he goes outside, they have to wrap up because he will burn in moments. And so will my poor little granddaughter. She will burn in moments. So you have to lather her all up even to go out and play. It's just a poor thing. So I noticed that you always wear this when you're out in the field to cover up, and I totally understand that completely. So and I know people have kind of questioned, oh, why is he all wrapped up like that? Well,
Yeah, it's wow. Is he trying to be a cool guy? No, it's called melanoma, and it's almost killed me twice. So I cover up. As a dermatologist told me many years ago, dude, you've got cheap Irish skin.
There you go.
So Pete comes out and he brings along this little bad boy right here. Now this drone, of course, you have as I mentioned earlier, you got the best tool, the best toys. But this camera, talk about this camera for a couple of minutes. This is a special camera that has not been out there Multi-Spectral.
That's right. Yeah. I tell you what.
There it is. Look at that.
So
Nice.
this is, and even though this model's a bit old, the tech is essentially the same. What you can see is that it's a 5-lens camera. The 3 of them are standard RGB, red, green, blue. So it can take normal photographs, but the other 2 are into the infrared. One is called near edge, and what's the other one? Red edge. So near edge and red edge are the 2 bands of the infrared that it can take photos of. Why? So the 30,000 foot view of multispectral tech is that it's designed and used in agriculture. So if you're a farmer, you're going to spend a whole lot of money on fertilizer and dealing with bug infestation, maybe irrigation, how do you keep the crops watered, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you can put a drone up with a multispectral camera in it. It'll take pictures of your crops and tell you everything. You've got a bug problem here. You're not watering enough there. You're over fertilizing here. So it's become this amazing tool for farmers to keep their costs down and only, fix areas that need fixing rather than fix the whole field, right? So it saves a lot of money, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what it's designed for. How it works and why it's so relevant to, in this case, what I'll call archaeology, is that what it does is it measures levels of chlorophyll in green plants. Okay. Where the magic happens, and I wish I'd have thought of it, but this is my kind of innovation. It's taking a tech that's designed to do one thing and going, I wonder if it would work for something else. And people a lot smarter than I did this. 4 or 5 years ago, I saw a paper on it from a guy in London who was doing his thesis, and he found Roman ruins in a wheat field somewhere in England.
Wow.
Because plants grow differently, have different varying levels of chlorophyll over soil that's been disturbed.
Oh, okay.
Even if it's 2,000 years ago, in the case of this guy who found Roman ruins. So, wow, what an amazing tool for archaeologists. If you want to know where soil has been disturbed, maybe there's something buried, whatever, and you meet a few other criteria, like it doesn't work with anything other than like low homogeneous ground cover, grass, hay, a pasture. It doesn't like woods, it doesn't like shrubs, that kind of thing. Well, the pastures at the ranch were perfect for this. So I raised my hand and said, I gave them the explanation I just gave all of you and said, let's fly MSI, multispectral imaging, and see what we get. And you guys saw the results. It did not disappoint. And again, for me, because I was there to capture the data, then I had to leave. And I didn't know. They didn't tell me the results until I saw them, Tuesday night this week. So
Wow.
it was pretty cool. I remember asking Brian about it. And he's like, oh yeah, you're going to like that when you see it. I'm like, yeah, thanks a lot. But yeah, so.
Yeah, there you are attaching it and getting everything ready to fly.
Mhm.
And so, we'll jump over to the data here in a second, but while I do that, explain a little bit now. Again, we're going back to GPS data, I'm assuming, but a couple of the things that were mentioned on the show, and they've mentioned this before with your drones and how they run a pattern. Mowing the lawn, I guess what you would call it.
Yep.
Could you tell me a little bit, because I is this something you program into the drone's computer and say, I want you to fly this pattern based upon GPS coordinates? Is that?
Yeah, you're spot on. It's essentially mission planning software. So draw a polygon around the area you want to map. And then based on the sensor, the software will figure out altitude, width of the lanes, or transects, as we call them. All of that, the software does, thank gosh, because I don't have those kind of math skills. But then, and it's all based on GPS data, of course. So when the drone takes off, I'm only there in case something goes wrong. It's flying this pattern based on satellite coverage, GPS coverage, autonomously. And that includes the multi-spectral. And if I can read your mind, an obvious question would be, was there any GPS pickups with the MSI data? No, there wasn't.
Wow.
There wasn't, which was
Yeah.
thankfully, because we never know, right? It's a roll of the dice when you use electronic gear dependent on satellite data at that place.
I know, because like every time you put one up, you got to worry about whether or not it's going to come down at your command or, low battery command or something else.
I used to have
How many of you lost? How many of you lost already?
3. I counted 3. Yeah.
Wow.
But in all honesty, one was my fault. One was pilot error. The other 2 were very strange.
Wow.
Very frustrating and very expensive.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can imagine.
I can't imagine. And then people always ask, well, how come the production crew stuff never has happened? Anything happened to it? Oh, but
it does.
It does, yeah.
It does.
So, they've lost a few as well. I think there was been a total, in counting yours, I think there's been a total like 7 have gone down or something like that, if I remember right. But yeah, so I think I heard that maybe it might have been in one of the chips and salsas or something like that. But there's been several drones that have come down. But yeah, Pete, how does your insurance company feel about that?
They don't take my calls. It's right to voicemail.
Oh goodness, I bet. Yeah. Question, Pete, can you do a flight over without using the GPS?
Yes, and I've done that. I've done that on the property before. When let me make sure I'm not going to violate an NDA here.
Yes, please. I don't want that to happen on my show.
November Delta Alpha.
Yes. I've done. We call it flying with our thumbs. When whatever I'm having trouble and the drone might be having a magnetic issue, which happens a lot because you have to orient the compass before you fly. It's part of your pre-flight. And let's not even talk about that part of the EMI interference on the property. The M being magnetic, so compasses go bananas too. Anyway, if I get frustrated and look, we have to fly because of time and cost, I've done a few with my thumbs. You don't get the kind of coverage, perfect coverage. There can be gaps in the data because it's best as I'm trying to fly a straight line, blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a very good question, Jim. Wonder if the 1.6 gigahertz pops when GPS messes up. I bet you they've studied that. That would be a good question for the insiders, for Eric. He would obviously be able to answer that question. I don't know. That's a very good question.
I'd like to know the answer to that.
Yes. If it's a 1-to-1 correlation, with the 1.6. Very interesting. So we got a look at the data, and this is it here. This is when you got back to the command center, or you were on camera, on video, at the command center, and there is your scans that were taken by the multi-spectral camera over the ranch. And man, you covered a lot more of the ranch than I ever imagined. Going, I don't know what the length is here. I know it's 512 acres, the whole thing, but that also incorporates some of it that's on the south end, that's not in this particular scan. But this is a large area. And I remember on the show, they said something about, this is going to take a couple of hours for this to run. And one other the question that had popped into my mind at that point was, so obviously your batteries are not going to. I'm assuming a battery's not going to last for 2 hours, or
Yeah,
does it?
there are battery changes when I have to, and the drone I use, you can hot swap, so you don't have to shut it down. You know, the drone's
Okay.
still running, change batteries, and finish up.
Okay, and send it back up. It'll know where it left off and go back to
Yes,
that point. And oh,
as
that's
long as the GPS is cooperating.
all dependent on that time.
Hey, if it's helpful to make sense of what you're seeing here, because
Please.
this is great, you were able to capture this, because I wouldn't be allowed to put this up there. It's not my data, but in this particular index, the bright colors are where the grass is doing really, really well.
Okay.
And it just so happens to correlate with the canal, right? The irrigation system that Tom spends an incredible amount of time maintaining.
Yes, he does.
So you can see how the canal system works and irrigates the fields where the hay for the cattle comes from. So at a sort of 30,000 foot view, looking at this particular index, this is why MSI technology is such a valuable thing for folks in the ag space, farmers, ranchers, etc. So where it's bright in this index, the plants are doing well. They're bright green, and the others not so well. Like look at the triangle. That is not a healthy area from a chlorophyll point of view.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. Yeah. So this area, all this right here is doing very well. And then you got a nice spot right here that's doing very well. And then, of course, all along here. Yeah, very good point.
But that's also, you know, when reviewing the data, you have to keep that in mind. Meaning, what am I looking at here? Is this just normal geology and irrigation doing what it's supposed to do, or is there something anomalous? And, you know, that's why I said right away, guys, there's a couple things I've seen that don't fit that criteria: irrigation, geology, hydrology, etc. So,
Yep. Wow.
that's super cool that you captured that. That helps a lot.
Yeah, I knew it was good. This was an important picture to have because I'm so glad that you're here to explain that, because I would have fumbled around with it as I often do. But
And
so
conversely, you can see on the face of the mesa, there's no date at all because it's just rocks.
right, yeah, yep, all along here, yep.
Yep.
That's amazing. That's really cool. And how that thing works. Then, as you got going, and you were able to go to a grayscale, I guess, was that, and look at it in different ways. And lo and behold, these circles popped up.
Yeah, right by the kill pen.
Yeah.
Or sorry, bait pen.
Bait pen.
Yep. So, and Cheryl was talking about this earlier in the pre-show. You want to share that again with us a little bit?
Yeah, when the Shermans owned the ranch, it was April in 1995. They went out to the field one day, and I'm not sure exactly where it was. This could be the spot. And they found 3 crop circles. They were 8 feet in diameter, and they were evenly spaced so that they formed a triangle.
Yeah, not sure if, like you said, not sure if it's the same spot or not, but that's very interesting. Yeah. And also there was a point, and they kind of talked about this on the episode where they had the sheriff, the retired sheriff. What was his name again, Jim?
Chris Porritt.
Yeah. And he came out and was talking. This was like in season 1 or 2, I think, or something like that. It was early on. But he came out and he was talking about and then he said, there was a depression in the ground or in the grass. I don't know if it was actually in the dirt or in the grass, but he had mentioned that there was a depression there and he said a UFO, and he said, "Oh, I said it, didn't I?" So again, I think I don't know if this was that same area or general area where they were looking. So, and a lot of people came out and said, and I think you even mentioned this on the show, Pete, or one of you did, that you can't rule out the fact that there could have been some sort of a farm building a silo or something like that that sat on this spot years ago and therefore changed the chlorophyll in the plant life because of it sitting there for so long or something. We can't rule that out. We don't know for a fact that that's not the case here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But having those three, go ahead, please.
All, as in this case, once again, I'm the messenger, so don't kill the messenger. The message is perfect circles, right angles, straight lines don't occur. I mean, I can almost say 100% don't occur naturally. So the message is, I would look there, and it could be mundane. To your point, it could be, oh yeah, they buried a cow there, 80 years ago. Who knows? Or there was a silo there. Yeah, the message was, that's interesting. My advice would be to go walk the ground, go see what's out there.
Yep, exactly.
Pete, do we have any idea as what the diameter of those circles are? So we get some kind of a size reference for them?
The software can do that, but that's probably, and I don't want to encroach on.
Okay.
For all I know, that could be a key data point in an upcoming episode, and I don't want to be that guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
But yes, absolutely. I could tell you, I could give you any measurement data. Yep.
Wow.
Great.
Yeah. So yeah, very interesting for sure. And again, we can't rule out the fact that it could have been somebody had something there that caused this. We just don't know that for a fact. So it is a possibility. And there it is in the regular. And again, I say regular. I don't know what I'm really talking about when I say that, but the regular view of the multi-spectral camera, and not being on the grayscale, looking at the color scale of it, I suppose would be the thing there. But again, you see those perfect circles, and like you said, that doesn't happen in nature. So something odd is definitely taking place there. The other important thing that they saw that I really had a lot of trouble initially seeing this, and because they saw it in the command center there, and I didn't until they really started to enhance it. But it was the lines, and I will click to the next screen. You can see them here a little bit right here. Here's one here. There's one that runs looks like across here. It's there. One here, and then one down here at the bottom that looks like it may be coming up. And of course, they enhanced it to show that right there. So, did you say that these were running east-west? I mean, that was mentioned on the show. Is that they were running east-west?
Yeah, they are. I mean, you wouldn't know this, but in this image, north is straight up. So, yeah, it's on an east-west bearing.
When I first saw this, I was thinking of the Egyptian hieroglyphs. And it made me think. I thought, man, I've seen one that has that curve on the bottom like this, and it's the eye that I was thinking of, but it doesn't correlate at all because there's no eye in this at all. But that made me think of it when I saw this here. Let's see.
Could all it being the musician that I am, it looks to me almost like a music staff.
Right.
Yes, very.
And
good
if you get those three circles on it, maybe they're notes for music.
Notes.
Wow, yeah, that's
My money's on Pink Floyd personally. But that's just me.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. I could go with Pink Floyd. I could do that. Yeah. Somebody asked the question it was about where the circles were. Pete, could you tell us the location of those circles relative to the area imaged? Well, I do have, before you get to that, and I know you can, Pete, I was going to show one of the pictures that I have here. If I can find it real quick. Before wasting too much everybody's time here. Let's see. There was a picture I had of the ranch. I think, this is, yeah. Now, here it is here, and I want to bring this one up. Pete, am I correct in saying that those circles are down right in this area down here.
You are correct.
Okay. So what does that tell us right there? I mean, okay, we go we go back to everything pointing to this particular area. Okay. Because when I was looking at this picture earlier, I'm going, oh, there's the bait pen right there. And that's where now we're looking at it the other way, but so it should be on this side, but yeah.
Great data point right across from the drill
From the
site.
drill site. Yep.
I mean,
There are no coincidences.
no. And you talk about repeatable. Now repeatable in different ways, but everything going back to this spot. It's just, folks, you can't make this up. And what have they said on the ranch? If I was going to make something up, it wouldn't have been this.
Right.
Right.
If we were going to make this up, it wouldn't have been this.
And another cliffhanger, right?
Yeah.
Are they sandbagging? They better come back to these circles, You know what I'm saying?
Oh, they better. Yeah. Definitely they better. Or they'll hear me during the Chips and Salsa or the Ranch Revelations. I'll be or when I get out to Phenomicon this year, I'll definitely be bringing that little tidbit up. Hey, what about that? Hey.
We'll gang up on them.
Yes, you're going to be there too, right, Cheryl?
Yeah.
That's where, and folks, I tell you, that's where I met the two people here on the bottom of the screen, Jimm and Cheryl. When I was at Phenomicon last year, I met both of them there, along with Roger, who's over in the chat.
Yeah.
And we all, every time we turned around, every time we were going to some sort of presentation or lunch or dinner or private thingy or whatever, all three of us happened to be there all the time, and we always seemed to sit at the same table.
Because we have a media pass and we just know where.
That's right.
Yeah. So, but yeah. So anyway, so there's and I'll bring this back up. There's that bait pen right there. So, and those circles are right there off to the side of it. So, yeah.
Pop quiz, just because this could deflect a lot of debunkers out there. Well, does the fact that there's a double bait pen there in the image mean that the GPS went wonky, or that Kelsey's pulling our leg? What's up with that? Which would be a valid question. The answer is it's shadow.
Shadow. That's what I was going to say. That's what it looked like to me anyway.
Sun shadow?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That makes total sense. But yeah, what else could it be? I mean, it's not like it used to lay there and they stood it up. So, yeah.
Or is it a mirror dimension?
Oh, dun, dun, dun.
I'm sticking with shadow, Jim.
Good
Oh
choice.
my
Good
God.
idea.
Yep. Yeah. Good plan. Stick with shadow. Yep.
The moon shadow. Oh, that's another song. Never mind.
Shadow. Yeah, I clicked on it too. All right. So yeah, we got the line. So, and what was really cool, I one of the really, really interesting things that I thought about with the lines was when and here's another shot of them. You can kind of see them going across right there. But one of the other things, and where the lines, that's what he was asking the question. Where are these lines in relation to the circles? And that I am not absolutely sure. I don't know what this structure. There's something right here. I don't know if that's the bait pen or not.
Pull all the way back out.
Maybe I should go back to that other picture.
Yeah, back to the other one.
This one.
You can see him in that one if you look close. Well, you should be able to.
Right here.
Yes, sir.
That's the lines going across right there. And the circles, I think, would be over here somewhere.
Yeah, it's going to be more towards the triangle, right?
Your
wait a
pointer's
minute.
going
No,
wonky.
don't listen to me. Sorry.
What? Oh, man. So the circles are not actually in the same general area. I think this one's a little bit too blurry when I get zoomed in here. I can't see the bait pen. And I should know because the triangle's over here.
But you could sleuth this easy, Jeff, because you have both images. You could figure it out.
Okay.
and I won't get sued.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And I don't want that to happen. Like I said, no, 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 no. Okay. So bait pin is right there. And that's the bait pin is actually off of the field of the command center because the command center would be over. Yeah. So the bait pin's there. The command center, this is flipped upside down.
Just remember, it's what you're looking at is directly across from the drill site,
Right.
Mhm.
and you could sleuth it.
And the drill site. And yeah. So the drill site's back that way, isn't it? I think so.
To the east.
It's to the east, right? Yeah. So the drill site, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but the drill site is over in this area because that's the command center right there, right? That's the
Helipad.
helipad. So that would put the bait pen right about in here. So
Well, one of them. There's more than one.
that's
Yeah,
true. There is, and I
there's two of them,
might
isn't
be
there?
on the wrong one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I thought that the drill site was up this way on this side. Anyway, I'm spending too much time on this, and we need to move on. But my geography on the ranch is waning on me right now. But anyway, so I would say that they're in the same general area, right? So right around in this area here, because the lines are right there. And I thought that the drill site was right. It was inside of a crest, so I thought it was right in here. So that would put it very close to where the lines are. But the interesting thing I thought about with those lines is when Travis had mentioned like a circuit board.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of people, and again, this is one of those things that blew up on the internet and social media, and people were saying things like, oh, it's a sewer drain field. Come on. And I'm like, yeah, no. First of all, there was no, and they talked about this in the insiders. There was no in habitation over there or house and everything like that in that area. Therefore, there would not be a sewer drain field over there in the first place.
The field would be a lot greener if that were the case.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, for sure. So that rules out that. And as we go along in the episode, the guys yeah, it was okay. There it is there. Now that's a better picture there to show. So there's the triangle way over there. Here's that one spot at where the Sherman said, do not dig. That puts the lines right down here. And there's the drill sites right there. So yeah, they're going to be generally in the same area. But isn't that odd that that's the same spot relatively where the Sherman said don't drill? Is that something that you covered also, Cheryl?
Yeah, in the book, yeah.
Yeah, in your book? Okay.
They just never said why.
Yeah, they said there was a particular point, and then when they went to the data, they found that big rock.
Right.
And they thought, oh, well, let's look underneath the rock, which you had to do. I mean, that was an obvious thing to get done. But apparently there's more to this spot. I mean,
Well, and they told them, don't move this rock. Don't move this rock and don't drill here. Don't dig here.
Yet they did.
Yeah.
And
they did all that.
You have to do that. You really do. I mean, you can't get away with not doing that, right? So let's see here. Oh, there he is there. Yeah,
there's your crop circle.
Yeah.
One of them. There were three. Yeah.
Like I guess that's another question that I have that Cheryl just mentioned there, and the photo just reminded me is that there were. I remember watching in one of the other documentaries that's out there. I think it might have been George Knapp's Hunt for the Skinwalker documentary, or Jeremy Corbell rather, and talks about Colm Kelleher was showing where there were a number of circular patterns that had been almost like they'd been dug into the ground and couldn't really figure out why. So I'm wondering if that's maybe related. What he's talking about in that is the same as what those three circles that we saw in this past week's episode. I don't know. I'm just
Supposedly, he
thinking.
told me they found parts from a craft.
Oh, really?
I can't tell you any more about that. But
Okay. Dun, dun, dun. There we go again. All right. So yeah, so this area, and again, he's standing right there in that same general area where all this stuff has taken place. Okay, so I gotta reorder, and we were kind of jumping around here, so my pictures are in a particular order that we're not talking about at the moment. So I wanted to jump over to where they are digging. Here's this. This is a pretty good shot right here. Looking at the bait pen right there. This is one of the bait pens. This is right the field of Homestead 2, it said. Yeah, east of Homestead 2. So, and it kind of shoots looking across here. Look at the difference in the grass, and that's going to show up big time on that multi-spectral camera. They got set up when they went out to do the actual digging with the backhoe, the little bobcat that they went out, and they obviously, again, as it was mentioned by somebody in the chat just a little while ago, are they watching for that? Is that coinciding with, the with the 1.6 gigahertz signal? And so they're all, every time they go out and do anything like this, they're always watching for that. And you saw the little kit of tools that Eric brings with him, looking for radiation tools, and his tri-field meter down there in the box and all this stuff. I mean, you have to do that.
mm-hmm.
You have to do all those. You have to be watching for all of that stuff. Every time you get out to go and dig a little bit. And then they go out and they dig with the backhoe. And then you're finding these spots, these lines down here of this stuff. And there it is enhanced. And when you talk about the circuitry, like when Travis had mentioned a circuit board, and anybody that's messed with a circuit board, there's the lines of connectivity throughout the circuit board on the back. You look at it, you see all the lines running everywhere. Okay. If this were some sort, and we're not saying that it is, he said it reminded him of a circuit board. But if it were something like that, and you dig down in that dirt, now you've broken that circuit because you just cut that line in half at some point, or not in half, but you cut that line along somewhere at some point. Is that going to have any effect on what's going on the ranch going forward from that point? And if it doesn't, did it ever have anything to do with it in the first place?
Very valid questions. Yeah.
I know, more questions. Every time they turn around and they do something like this, they come up with more questions. It's kind of like the whole Oak Island thing. Every time they find something else on the island, it just brings up more questions. So
could this be part of like when I go down to Serpent Mound, could this be part of an uplift from the tectonic plates when they moved? And that's why you have different parts of soil that came from underneath.
Mm-hmm. I don't think you can rule that out.
Yeah.
No possibility.
Mm-hmm.
What's
your take on
it? I chased a geology degree years ago. I see something like this, and an actual geologist who understands stratigraphy would have that same thought, Cheryl. My thought is, in stratigraphy, depth is everything, because depth can tell you age. That can be figured out. There is a way, it's a geologic method that when minerals cool and turn into the actual rock, they orient north. Some of the minerals within the crystalline structure orient north. And it's a really cool way of dating something without organic material in it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's when I saw that, I was like, wow, that's really interesting. So either somebody, because again, I'm just the messenger. All I can tell you is that somebody disturbed that soil. And location, my favorite argument is that it lines up with the lines. Travis made this very clear in the show,
Mhm.
which was, great for me because without that, I would have gone, there's not a whole lot of meat on that bone. But this is because it all lined up. And I know somebody's been digging there. The multispectral makes it, to me, the needle moves to this isn't natural, right? Versus that it's just geology being geology. I
Mhm.
could be
Yeah.
wrong, but that's
Wow.
Well,
that's
that
what I thought.
geological record's not going to lie. I mean, it is what it is. It's
Mhm.
not. It's
And then the chemical analysis was, I'm sure you're getting that, Jeff. That was really interesting,
Mhm.
Mhm.
very much so.
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Yeah, as a matter of fact, let's see. Oh, yeah, I do have that picture. And this is the area where they were working. Um, can you show Jeff the lines again on on their sides of point? Oh, okay.
The
Everybody's seeing
Egyptian,
the eye of Ra.
Egyptian eye,
Yeah.
eye of Ra, or
Right, yeah.
That's
yeah.
what it made me think of. And I know that that's probably way out in the left field or the east field, if you want to call it. But yeah, I mean, it just made me think of that when I saw it. That
Well, and there
curvy
was
line.
another really interesting thing that one of the guys said in the show. Said these things are about the width of a dozer blade.
Mhm.
I'm like, interesting. So to me, again, I don't want to pollute it with my opinion, but it sure looks like somebody dug, 5 parallel trenches or near parallel. But,
Mhm.
why? It
Mhm.
doesn't suggest that you'd bury anything. At least, it's a ranch. Would you bury dead cows in 5 parallel trenches?
Yeah.
I kind of doubt it.
No.
So,
No. Yeah,
and
not
it's
likely.
also interesting. You can see there see how the healthy grass crosses the 5 lines.
Mhm.
Because again, somebody who was sharp and knew MSI tech even better than I did would say something like, well, those could just be depressions in the ground that were water pools, so the grass gets more water and refracts light differently, right? And that would be a valid challenge. But the drainage goes right across all 5 lines. So it's kind of throws that one out the window.
And your drainage in straight lines, that's kind of.
Yeah. I mean, that's to me, it's somebody did that. That is purposeful.
Yeah, it was definitely not a natural formation. No way. Too precise.
Yeah.
And it stops and starts, right?
Right,
There's
right.
a beginning and an end on all of them. It's like, wait a
Mhm.
minute.
Yeah. This is what it made me think of.
Eye of Horus. Yeah,
Yeah.
the Eye of
That's what it made
Horus.
me think of. And it was just
Yeah,
because of that line on the bottom and everything. So I know that's out, like I said, out in left field, but
yeah.
that's what it made me think of when I first saw it. So it has nothing to do. I'm sure it has nothing to do with it, but it's just that's what came to mind when I first saw it.
Do you know there's actually that part in your brain?
Yeah. That's a whole other story, rabbit hole we could go into. But
Yeah,
yes,
I'm a medium. That's how I know this. Okay.
the all seeing eye, yeah, or the eye of your inner eye, I guess. Yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah,
We could
that's where it
definitely
comes from. Okay.
yeah. So anyway, but that's what made me think of it when I saw this picture for the first time. It definitely came to thinking of that right there. So, um, but anyway, talking about that circuitry and then the fact when they were digging, did they break that circuit? And so, how will that change things going forward? Will it at all? I don't know. Now that they've removed that material, now I think that when they did the analysis of the material, and there is a picture, let's see, right? And there's the material again in the ground. There's a shot. They went actually over here and they dug over by that tree. That's where Travis is pointing to right now to go over and dig by that tree. And again, they found again the lines over there as well. They were continuing. So that gives you a little bit of a perspective, a little bit of how long they actually are, those lines.
How
So
far apart are the lines?
um I think they were roughly a bulldozer blade width, a larger bulldozer blade width. And then they were also about that distance apart from one another. So I
Hmm.
would say at least 8 feet, maybe. If you're looking at, I don't know, 6 foot both
Wow.
dozer blade, 6 to 8 foot
Yeah.
dozer blade. I'm guessing, because there's different sizes of dozers, of course, too. So,
like an
um,
old D9 or something.
yeah, depending upon how big it was, it's hard to say,
Yeah.
but that would be my guess, somewhere in that range. I would say 4 to 8 feet or 4 to 6 feet in width.
And that's kind of one of the things that I guess, maybe is part of the information that Bigelow has kept to himself. Was that something, if they were digging there, and if that was a bulldozer or some kind of track vehicle that was being used on that, was that something that his team did, or that's
Yeah,
unfortunately just one of the things we don't know. We don't have the access to that,
Right.
right.
Was he doing some kind of experiment there? That's why he did that.
right?
Well, and yeah, and I'm going to show you a picture here in just a moment after we get done with this. But here's the chemical analysis. You got sodium, magnesium, aluminum, potassium, calcium, and iron, which Travis mentioned are all conductors of electricity. So, yeah, and you have now. This is something that the I think it was Andy had said on Beyond Skinwalker. He had made the comment, and I'm gonna try to get to see if I can get this exactly the way he said it. But there was the comment about electromagnetic fields, magnetic will follow electricity. So whenever they're doing like an EMF reading, if you go into a house and you're doing you get a tri-field meter or just a regular electromagnetic field meter, and you're checking around the house in a house. Now, if you get over by the breaker box, you're going to pick up a lot more because electricity is flowing through those lines a lot more in that one concentrated area than they would be around the rest of the house. So, and that stuff, as we know, and I'm sure as a medium, or you probably know that can mess with your brain.
Mm-hmm.
A high electromagnetic field area can mess with your brain.
Can
It
make
can
you see things that aren't there. Yes.
exactly. That's where I was heading. You can have hallucinations and things like that. So if the ground and the items that are in that ground, and I know I'm going off on a tangent here, so pull me back if I need to be reined in. But you take these pieces, these elements in the ground, and we already know that they've done electrical experiment where they ran power through the ground and it lit up for them. That was over by Homestead too when they did that. That was a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
If this kind of stuff is heavily in the ground, and that would make the ground more susceptible to being able to conduct electricity. And then you're going to have an area of higher electromagnetic field
Mm-hmm.
readings, right? Am I going, is that make
Correct.
sense?
I think you're on the right path. Absolutely.
So does that add to this area being a place where, you know, if it gets energized in some way, that's when the meters are going to start going off, and the high strangeness all of a sudden starts to happen because of the material makeup of the ground and the things that are there? I don't know. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? That's anybody dare to go down that rabbit hole with me? Yeah.
I'd like to see another Tesla coil experiment where they do that kind of thing, and
Mhm.
be
Yes.
looking for that 1.6 gigahertz signal to start maybe showing up once they start doing that, and then maybe do a multi-tier approach. Simultaneously fire while they're doing that, fire rockets into the air. Just kind of see where all this really goes and see exactly in what way, if at all, any of that is connected, and if they can draw out some of that anomalous behavior that always tends to rear its head when they do stuff like that. That and plus the Tesla coil thing was just the coolest thing to watch. So
It was. That was
really
really
enjoyed
awesome.
that.
Yeah, I did too. I just loved it. I thought that was really, really an awesome thing. The one thing that I wanted to bring up, talking about these lines and the material makeup of these lines. and knowing that Bigelow used to own this property, and that Bigelow also owned at one time the property up at Mount Wilson Ranch. And they went out there with a magnetometer. They tried to fly it, but that drone went all over. It was like it was swimming in the air. I mean, it was just erratic. Was that being affected by some sort of electromagnetic field and GPS getting all jacked up or whatever? We weren't there, but we saw it on TV. Carl, the Crusher, Carl had a very good thing on it. Was that messing it up? But remember when he took that and he went down to the lower meadow, the young guy, they called him Young Buck or whatever the guys did on the show. But he went down there with it in his hand, and he was down there with Andy, and they were walking back and forth, and he did the lawn mowing pattern with it in his hand. And what was it that he ended up? Whoops, sorry.
If Jeff wanted to watch this interview,
let me stop that. Sorry. Oop, I clicked on the wrong thing there. Okay, so that was actually part of the show. This is what they ended up capturing with the magnetometer walking around in the lower meadow. And this is also the area where they said Bigelow was out there with a bulldozer, and it got stuck and it sat there for 2 years in the mud. Is there any relation between the lines that Mr. Kelsey found and these lines? I don't know.
Looks
Pretty cool,
similar.
Jeff.
Pretty similar.
Pretty cool.
I mean, when they dig this area, and of course Carl knows more about that because he's still out there, covering all this stuff. Yeah, is there any correlation between these two areas, both owned by Bigelow? They know there was a bulldozer down there working this area. We're assuming that the area there on Skinwalker Ranch is about bulldozer blade width. That was mentioned, and my brain was going, wait a minute, where have I heard this before? I don't know. Am I going out on a big limb there? I mean, I don't know. It could be.
Looks similar to me. And what the heck was he digging for?
Did he put those in there? I don't know.
That's it. Bigelow's just messing with us.
But now, if let's say he was, okay, here I go speculating again. You guys know I love to do this. If he was, what was he trying to do? What was he trying to? And you remember when Travis saw this, when they came back from Mount Wilson Ranch, and Travis saw it, and he said, "That looks like an array of some sort, like an antenna array." And they talked about that there was I don't know if he called it a rumor or whatever, but he was talking about an array putting out a low frequency, like a what we were talking about this with the animals make this, like, they say Bigfoot or
Infrasound.
Infrasound,
yes,
yeah.
yes, thank you,
Right.
Cheryl and Jim. That could actually bring down, maybe is what brought down a UFO, or could affect a UFO's guidance or whatever. So were they experimenting with something? Did they do that on Skinwalker Ranch as well as in the meadow? I don't know. Something to think about.
Well, one thing that still sticks out to me about Bigelow is that he was so. I mean, he is absolutely speaks with a great deal of certainty when he speaks on the subject, and he says that there is an extraterrestrial presence on Earth. I mean, he just absolutely believes that there are extraterrestrials, and so you got to wonder, what information is he privy to that makes him draw that conclusion? Did he actually see something? Did they have the data that pointed him in that direction, or did one actually show up? And if so, how were they still able to determine that it was extraterrestrial and not something that would fall into the category of crypto-terrestrial or ultra-terrestrial or interdimensional, right, Cheryl?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and it still comes back to the whole bit that, somebody knows all the data that Bigelow's team collected, and quite obviously they did collect some data, but Do we have access to all that? I don't know. I
I don't
haven't
know that we'll
heard
ever know.
one way or the other. So, but I guess the best person to ask him, is Bigelow the kind of guy that would, put misinformation or disinformation out there? Is he a prankster or a trickster? Ask the
Yeah.
people that work for him. Ask guys like Chris Bartell. They might have a better idea on that. But anything's possible at this point. But I think there's a lot of parallels between what we've seen at Skinwalker versus what we've seen at Mount Wilson. And again, I don't think there's any coincidences. I think it all somehow fits together.
Mhm.
And I think you'll probably find a lot of similarities in these other places like Sedona, and it may be more common than we realize. We just don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I
And
agree.
I'm sure Bigelow has lots of data, but because he's a private entity, I've tried doing FOIAs, and there's other people that have done FOIAs, and
Yeah, and
we
that's
can't touch it.
ultimately
We can't touch it.
precisely. Yeah, and that's ultimately what we have to remember is that it was a private enterprise. He's not under any
No,
obligation, legally or otherwise, to disclose that data if he
right,
doesn't want to.
right.
Would we like him to? Oh, of
Yeah,
course.
that's too
But
bad. Why
yeah,
keep this? I don't understand.
right, right.
Well, you never know. There, when you get involved with the government, you just don't know. Um, there could be reasons why, he doesn't want to, if there's any kind of data, and we don't know. And
We don't know.
again, we are just speculating that he
Right.
has more data that he hasn't shared. We just don't
Yeah,
know that.
yeah.
I think that,
That's an assumption in itself. I
yeah,
think
I
you're
think
right. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Brandon was talking about the fact that they've got that there isn't any more data. I don't know.
Mm.
But you
I
would think,
just, as a on the ground data capture measurement guy, I'd want to start with, what are the dimensions of the lines at Mount Wilson? Give me the dimension on the blade of that old dozer that's there.
Mhm.
Right.
Give me the bearing that those lines are on. Give me,
yes,
and then start to look for, it's forensics, right? And if my guess is there either will be or won't be, really interesting similarities, because that would suggest whoever did it, and who else would do it, but the guy who owned both properties,
Mhm.
clearly an experiment that he tried that was repeated on a
Yep,
second property.
right,
Hmm.
That's interesting.
Right.
yes,
Exactly.
yeah,
Spot
Because
on.
we know he did experiments with plants where he would have some plants growing at the ranch there, and he had another control group plant at someplace else to
Right.
see the different. Could that be the other place where he had the plants? We never heard where the other place was.
And if anybody does some digging at those lines on Mount Wilson Ranch, and the same material that comes out of the ground at more or less the same depth,
yep,
Mhm.
the
There you go.
prosecution rests.
yes,
Case.
absolutely,
There you go.
yeah. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Robot asked the question. He was saying a question for each. What is their opinion? What is happening here or there? If you mean on Skinwalker Ranch, what is happening there? I don't know. Do you guys want to take a stab at that? What's your thought? I mean, Cheryl, as we start to wrap up tonight, do you want to take a stab at what you think is going on at Skinwalker Ranch?
Well, as I told you before, I remote viewed there a couple of years ago, and I saw there is two dimensions trying to bump into each other, which is causing a lot of this EMF and who knows what else, and there's things in the sky, there's things in the ground.
Mhm.
And the native man that was talking to me, as we all see now, he keeps telling me I need to know something in the east by the Mesa. He's been telling me this.
Yeah, and there we are.
Yeah, but he won't tell me what it is.
And there we are. We're
I
in the
know.
east by the Mesa. Yeah.
I know. The more that we see and they keep going east, I go, tell me more.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Jim?
I respectfully invoke my Fifth Amendment privilege. um, no, I really still, after all this time, and bear in mind, I've been reading and studying about Skinwalker Ranch since going back to 2006, 2007. So, um, it's a little bit of everything, and we're still. I think we are getting closer to what some of the answers might be, but is there any one size fits all answer? I don't think there is.
I don't either.
I think some of what we're seeing probably is like Cheryl mentioned. We're talking about possibly two different dimensions bleeding into each other occasionally, which would certainly explain some of the transient nature of the phenomena. Um, there's also quite obviously nuts and bolts craft that appear. Several of the people have attested to that. Brandon has attested to having seen a nuts and bolts craft.
Yep.
So, what exactly is it? That's what makes it such a compelling mystery, and that's what has drawn me in for all this time and continues to draw me in week after week. But what I think needs to be said, and I never, never tire of saying this, but what I'm so impressed about with this particular team of people that are out there is that they are being led by data. They are data driven on everything that they're doing.
Mhm.
And that's exactly the way it has to be, because as much as I absolutely loved reading The Hunt for the Skinwalker, comparing that with what they're doing now, it's comparing apples to oranges. It's there's wasn't a lot of data to back up what was in The Hunt for the Skinwalker book, whereas the stuff that's happening now, we get to watch that, and of course, being insiders, we get to see a lot of that happening in real time. So I think that's just part of why this is so exciting and so thrilling to watch this all unfold, because whatever it is, I think is going to change the world. It's going to change how we view reality. It's going to change how we view probably consciousness and just all kinds of just really exciting things. And again, I'm just grateful to be a passenger and an observer watching all this happen. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, me too. Pete, I know because of the fact that you have a lot more, I'm going to say in the future data than we do, I'll probably hesitate asking you that question because I don't want to get into November
Delta Alpha
Alpha there. I'll kind of hold back from asking you that question because again, I don't want to be the place where somebody had gotten in trouble with talking about something they shouldn't. So
Can I answer it anyway?
sure, absolutely. You're
Well,
free to
and
do so.
that sounds like I have something to contribute. I love Cheryl's and Jim's answer actually, and what do I think's going on there? I have absolutely no idea.
Drinking game.
And then when people are confronted with that, there's two paths, right? Oh, it's all nonsense, or I'm curious. Tell me more. And my personality is such that I would rather not take the easy road, which is, whatever. It's all can be explained, or geology or whatever. I would rather be on the curious side, and that's what keeps me coming back. And in my journey from full-blown skeptic to this curious person, I mean, it's been that part of it's really healthy on a personal level, because you guys have all heard some wild theories, and it's at times, we've probably all been there. You just want to go, what the blankety, or laugh, or just something ultimately kind of disrespectful at the end of the day. It's been great to be a part of something that, for me, challenges that and says, what if you're wrong, you arrogant, blah, blah, blah. Yep. And I would rather come at it from that place of humility than absolutely not, right?
Yep.
And as I told the guys, what do I want all of it out of this? I want to see you guys in Stockholm getting your Nobel Prizes.
Yes.
I want to be in the audience.
Amen.
That's all I want.
No, you're going to be up there with them. No, seriously, I say that because you are contributing data to this whole thing. Every time you go out there, and perform, with one of your pieces of equipment, your toys, your high-tech toys, you're adding data to this whole thing. And I think that's very, very important. I
Yeah.
wouldn't love having you on the show so much if you didn't have such a huge contribution to all of this. My personal opinion.
And that's very kind of you, and I appreciate that very much. But there isn't. It's why the insiders are so great, because everybody's contributing. It's a collective, right?
Yeah.
And when you're tackling material like this, and what better way to address difficult questions like this than with opinions from everywhere, and to
Right.
go, okay, on the outset that sounded completely nuts, but wait, okay,
Yeah.
let's run that to ground. And
Mhm.
who's better at that than Professor Bard?
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
anyway, I've said enough. I have no idea,
Well,
but the
Pete-
more
Yeah.
things, the more we sort of get tantalized by some new data point. That's just fun, right? And there's
Oh, yeah.
something,
Absolutely.
there's something, sort of narcotic about it. And I could admit that too. It's like, wow,
Oh, yeah.
that's great.
Right.
Then it becomes what can be frustrating. You've got all these random data points.
Mhm.
Well, let's not forget the correlation, and let's not forget repeatability, and let's, so
Right.
anyway, enough of the noise inside of
Well,
my head.
and the thing of it is that, and I go back to this saying that when Travis first went out there, he thought everybody was batshit crazy. And now, because of the fact that the data has shown there is something going on there. I don't care how you look at it, all the data they've collected thus far, they can't say yet what it is or when it appears and goes away or why it does that or whatever. But the data has proven there is a high strangeness anomaly happening at Skinwalker Ranch. And they're slowly but surely narrowing in on this. And of course, that takes us to next time at the Skinwalker Ranch. They're going to be putting up another weather balloon that we saw them do. And this one has enough. Look at all the things that are hanging on this stuff. I mean, they got all kinds of data on there, data gathering instruments on this thing. We don't know all yet what, but look at what they are going to be talking about next week. Ugh, man, and I heard him say something to the effect of, and again, editing might have changed this around, but I heard one of them say something about, and that's in the air above the ranch, that they're picking up this weird data. We'll get to find out more about this next week as we watch the show. Is it Tuesday yet? I mean, come on. And then, of course, this thing, whatever it was, talking about some heat signature that's out there in the field. We'll get to hear about more of that. And then more bits about them being surveilled, which I tell you what, that part of it right there, absolutely, it makes me mad, but it also bothers me to the nth degree that they are being surveilled the way they are. There's somebody or some organization watching them and what they are doing out there. And the whole thing with their voices coming back to them in the command center and out in the field and all of this stuff. I mean, that in Thomas and them guys have all commented about the fact that they feel so uneasy now, being there because they feel like they're being constantly surveilled. I mean, I don't know. That just blows me away. I can't.
The deep state is real.
It's probably the secret government. Yes, that's what somebody just said. That could be. We don't know, but that would just freak me out. Quite honestly, it does. To them guys, knowing that them guy, and I think it's happening. I really honestly believe it's happening. So,
all I can say is if they start digging and they find Hunter Biden's laptop, I am out.
Oh, and on that note, we're going to call it a night, folks. I tell you what. So, Man, this has been great. I really love it. And this is exactly why not only do I love the chat,
Get this great book here.
yes, and I have that book. I actually own that book. It might be right here on my shelf, but I actually own that book and I read it, loved it. Great book. Great book. I think you were talking about that before too, Jim. That is a very
Yes, that's a fantastic book. Fantastic book. A lot of great
Oh,
research.
there goes Linda. That's Linda saying that. You know, when she types, it comes up as me, but she has it too. So there you go.
Well, the first book we actually called it "Digging into Skinwalker Ranch."
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then you told me you got Chosen coming out. Any
Yes.
idea when?
I don't know. Hopefully July.
All right.
I was
Good,
hoping
good, good.
June. It's not happening though.
All right.
I
Mr.
keep getting
Kelsey.
distracted.
Yeah, well, you know, yes, your
Life.
dog. I know.
Life.
Yeah, life, and for sure. Mr. Kelsey, can you? Is there? I hate to ask you this question, but might we see you again on the show this season?
On your show?
Oh, well,
Or
my show, yes, but you know, I hate to ask that question. I know you probably can't answer it, but
I can't answer it.
yeah,
I'm
love to
sorry.
see you on there.
November Delta Alpha.
Yes, I know.
But I do want to say, Cheryl and Jim, it's great to meet you at last.
Likewise, it's a pleasure.
Pleasure chatting with you. And Jeff, you run a tight ship as always. Thanks very much for having me.
It's my honor
Always
to have
fun.
all three of you. Yeah, my honor to have all three of you on the show. And like I said, the chat, the folks in the chat, we have the smartest people, the insiders, the brain power within the insiders just blows me away all the time.
Amazing.
And this is what makes my show, I think, so interesting, is having wonderful guests like all three of you. And I can't thank you enough for coming on. Folks, this has been a great night. We're at 2 hours. We got to go. I try to cut it off at 2 hours and it slips by so doggone fast. But if Mr. Kelsey is on the show again, I'm going to talk him into coming on here again and talking about whatever he may be doing on Skinwalker Ranch or elsewhere. So, all right. Thank you for being here tonight, folks. And next week, we're going to be covering. I am going to Nova Scotia. I'm leaving in the morning, and I've got a lot on the plate for next week. And I'm hoping that it doesn't completely interfere with what's happening with my podcast for Beyond Skinwalker Ranch and Skinwalker Ranch. If I have to double up, I might have to skip next week. I'll let you know as we go through next week and get a little closer. But we will not miss covering episode number 9 and 10 coming up. If it's the last thing I do, we will talk about it. So thank you guys for being here tonight. And as always, don't forget to click and give us a thumbs up if you like the content of our show, and click that subscribe button. We'll catch you next time right here on the JFree906 podcast. Good night, everyone.
See ya.